So I'm calling to order the Keizer Community Diversity Engagement Committee meeting. Today is Thursday, March 7th. It's 6 p.m. We do a call to order. Do we do a roll call?
Yes, Tammy Coons,
Here.
Stephanie Cross,
Here.
Carrie Brown,
Absent for the moment.
Tyus Ruddick,
Here.
Benita Picasso,
Here.
Shani Starr,
Here.
Laura Reed,
Here.
Nevaeh Music.
Absent for the moment. Okay. So let's go through the first order of business, which is the approval of minutes from our February meeting.
I vote that we approve the minutes.
Second?
Will we call the roll? Everyone in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, motion's passed. Meeting minutes are approved. Any interested citizens? Nope, not today, maybe on Monday? Okay. So let's go into our committee member reports, because I know we have a full agenda, but I would love to spend a majority of our time, hopefully, at the list that we're putting together for the meeting on Monday. So we'll start with the committee reports. Tammy? Anything to report?
I did not prepare anything.
That's okay. Anything anyone wants to report? Nope. Okay. Well, so let me check my email. Did you all receive the PowerPoint for the meeting on Monday today from Adam? Yes, okay.
I don't think I did.
Okay, I will forward it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So on Monday, we have an open session. Hey, Carrie.
Hi.
We have an open session with counselors and the mayor and city staff? Some city staff to talk about a few different things. Purpose of the committee, is it still the right thing? Is it still the right goals? How to engage. I asked Adam to include a slide about what we've accomplished so far, so kind of a list of accomplishments. I also asked a slide to talk a little bit about concrete goals for the committee. I know we have the strategic plan, but the strategic plan is still, seems to me, being finalized, approved, resourced, prioritized. Is that accurate, Tim?
That is correct.
Okay. And then also, I think I said what I've observed, and so if others haven't observed this, please chime in, but what I've observed is sometimes we don't know what's in scope of within our scope and what's out of scope. And so we don't know what we can and can't recommend, because is this part of what is in scope, or is this part of what's that's outside of scope? So to just really get that clarification so we're not spinning our wheels. So does that sound accurate about things to talk about? Does anyone have anything else that they would like clarification or discussion on? Tammy?
I'm thinking.
Okay, I can hear it from here.
I think one of the things I would really like to know is what kind of engagement they're looking for from us. I know that when I first started, we were reaching out to other community partners from our list that's in our books that we got from Dawn, but people didn't really seem to take off with that. I still touch base with all the same ones except for Keizer Little League, which is not an easy task to get answers on. But I still touch base with everybody just because I engage in other ways within the community, let them know what's going on with SCATs and what may be coming up in our area that we need to be mindful of. One thing I would like us to do is make a better connection of engagement with our neighborhood associations. I don't know what everybody's area is, but if we can make a point to really start engaging in some of the neighborhood associations, I think that would help as well, because then we can get to know what their needs are, as well as different ways we can maybe guide that engagement process through city council.
Thank you. I think that's a fair question to ask. Any others?
I think for me, when I read the purpose, to act in advisory capacity to the Keizer City Council, and then on the bottom it says, listen to understand what Keizer wants and how we all want to be accepted. I think about. I think I turned it off. I think about how is that executed, meeting just once a month here and not having but to participate, and it doesn't have to be all of us, but assigned or once, I don't know, quarterly or monthly, attending the other meetings to hear what those plans are, what's happening in those areas. I know that they come in and they provide information when they need advisory or when they want to just bring forward information, but I think it's harder to advise or to provide guidance when it's coming to you at that moment without having prior knowledge or interaction of what's happening in the other committees. So maybe the restructuring, I think meeting once a month is right, but maybe the restructuring on what happens with our interaction as the committee would be very helpful for me.
Thank you. And that's something that doesn't happen currently, right? There isn't like a joint meeting of all the committees to kind of touch like a work session of what are you working on? What am I working on? How can we call it? It's a little bit siloed.
That is correct, yes.
And not so much like all groups coming together, but like like one of us will go to this meeting and report out, right? So hearing out how does equity is fitting into that, or diversity fitting into whatever we're hearing.
Okay. Jackie and I attend a lot of the meetings. Would it be helpful if I put together like a brief couple paragraphs of what was covered and just sent it to Dawn to send out? Because I can help with part of that, but I do like the fact of everybody taking a turn, because I know I've missed a few parks. I try not to miss traffic because it's one of my favorites. But there's ways that we might be able to engage in that process a little better as a group among ourselves as well.
Counselor Reed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, yeah, I think that that's important, but we also have to be able to look at it through the lens of what we can control. I mean, it's not just, oh, what did the parks do? But it's, okay, the Parks Department is working on this. How can we help engage the community more toward this plan? You know, see what I'm saying? Because we have council liaisons already to all of those meetings. We know what's going on in those meetings, but our job as a committee is to provide our perspective on it in terms of how we can, what they need in terms of community engagement and how we can go about doing that. And that could look a million different ways. But I think that that's part of what we should be doing instead of just, going and reporting, because we get that at council meeting.
Yep. And it's not necessarily reporting, but going, when you say community engagement with the diversity lens to it, right?
Counselor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Using the parks as an example, I think it's in their budget or going to be in their budget, and I'm looking at Mr. Wood, but for some ADA components in different parks, to me, that seems like something that would have been brought to us as a community diversity engagement committee, I see a lot of head nods, so thank you. But just brought to us, and for maybe our review of what they're planning, or asking our input, or what does an adaptive, what does adaptive equipment look like? Are we covering all of the bases in the different parks? So it's one thing to be advisory to the council. I think that's important, but I also think that it's probably worth a conversation about what does it look like for something like, how do we make our parks more accessible, would be a really good question and conversation for this committee to talk about, because there's different types of accessibility. It's not just about ADA equipment, but it could be different sensory type pieces of equipment. So just a thought as an example to build on that. But that's something that it should be happening early in the process, not the month that it's going to happen. So thinking long term about what some of the projects are, and then, I think people on this committee were selected for very different reasons to encompass a lot of different engagement, kind of the spectrum of engagement, if you will.
Councilor Reed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to build on that, our meeting on Monday, when we're meeting with the council, to start making the counselors aware that, okay, here are some I'm going to say red flags, but I don't mean red flags. I mean this would be something that would be good to involve this. So if we can get the council working with us on that process, because what Shani describes as what Council President Starr describes as super important, but the mechanism is what we need to work on in terms of how do we know when our perspective is going to be welcome or necessary. And I think that's something that the counselors need to be able to help us with, since they are on all the committees.
I also think it's a matter of, and I'm hoping again on Monday we have some visibility of like what's in scope, what's out of scope, is we could also visit the other committees at least once and just say, hey, these are some of the things we can help with. Bring it to us, right? Is that collaboration piece. We saw it from traffic, right? When they were doing the neighborhood, they thought about it and they brought it here. But maybe not all of them understand in planning, right? And so that's just that piece, is that consultative. And to your point, like, we may not be the experts, but we know where to find or where to go. Say, hey, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that? Have you thought of asking these folks or that folks? Or, again, we don't have the expertise. We have some expertise. We don't have all of it, but we can help the lenses or help think through some of those things, right? How are we being as inclusive as we can be? So, okay. So maybe that's something we propose also, as a part of the conversation on Monday. So I think I veered off topic. So we're still doing community reports, talking about what we would like to see on Monday and request. But maybe we can move on to number 5, which is let's prepare a list of accomplishments. I know, Dawn, you had put together something for our folder that had just the accomplishments tab.
Sorry, that was probably my fault. I jumped ahead.
I'm sorry, what's that?
No, I jumped ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. I can't be nonlinear. Okay, so we had the Keizer 40th birthday party. That was one. I would say the input on the strategic plan, number 2. Any others that come to mind?
Neighborhood traffic management plan.
Thank you.
And then and I'm not going to remember the project, but the project that Shane was working on, do you remember the name of that?
Oh, are you talking about the
Tim-
mixed use?
I believe it was the climate-friendly, equitable communities work.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Yeah, that.
So can you repeat it again?
was
Flag
hard.
it. Flag it. Can you repeat it, please? Claggett?
They call it the CFEC. It's the Climate Friendly Equitable Communities legislation, I suppose, is what it is. It's state rules that say we're supposed to be doing certain things as a community to make our community more environmental and equitable.
Okay, thank you. Any others? And I'm one of the newbies, so I'm not going to claim to know all that we've done. Carrie? No?
Perhaps, we've just kind of started this largely due to Tammy's efforts, but collaboration with the neighborhood associations. And the resource fair, again, that was, I think, pretty incidental. Did you, a few of us went to that, but.
Oh, the observance, yes.
That's what I was gonna say. Our contribution on a monthly basis.
Yes. And I don't take that lightly from an awareness perspective because, and this might be naive, but I'm assuming folks don't know. So I'm coming with the assumption that folks don't understand or don't know the history, so I'm going to tell you, have that as an opportunity to share information, right? I'm not going to come in and assume that you already know. I'm going to assume that you don't know, and then we're using this as an opportunity to inform, educate, share, enlighten, what have you. So, and yes, Councilor Reed.
And even if they do know, it's building upon what they know.
Right,
That's-
right. Was pleasantly surprised, I think, and this is probably a cautionary tale, to do check with the mayor because she has a lot of connections, and so when presented the Black History Month, and I had reached out to someone from the NAACP to come and attend, she mentioned to me that she actually was presenting it to the president of the NAACP on Wednesday. So she's very connected, if you didn't know, and so check with her so we're not doubling up on efforts. So, any other items that you think is the book or the educations, the piece, or no? Was that more of a continuous education or continuous learning from committee members?
I thought it was helpful.
Okay.
I mean, there's definitely things we could have improved on in terms of that approach, but I think it's helpful to have kind of a common understanding.
Would it also be helpful to, I know we're going to discuss clear goals, so maybe I'm jumping the gun on this one, but should we also ask what it is that we want to accomplish? Like ask, yes, Mr. Wood?
I was going to say, don't forget about the planning for the 40th birthday party.
I have that in here.
Oh, you do? Okay.
That's one that has like a very pretty items
Yeah,
attached
Don
to
did a
it.
great job at that one.
She really did, yeah. It was a lot of work. So what would we want to accomplish?
Moving on to the
I would, I mean, if we can, I'm being nonlinear with the agenda, so let's just go. Or do we want to save that for Monday? That's the other option as well.
I think we have to first know what,
We can and can't
yeah,
do.
what is
In
our
scope
scope
and out scope?
and logistics of it. How is that gonna work before we?
So I'm going to give you homework. Come Monday prepared with your list of what you would love to see us do. And we'll see what's in scope and what's out of scope, but let's come in with wish list. Knowing what we have as, like, we're not going to change the resolution, we're not going to change what our purpose is, but within those parameters, what is it that we would like to see done?
Kind of would like us to make sure that we cover what each of these are going to include, like the justice. What is it they're looking for from our points of view to help with including that value? The equity, the diversity, the inclusion. what are things that we can do to help bring that into a unity base or to a common base so that we are hitting all of those spots when we're engaging in the community. That way we're not leaving anybody out.
I think for me, the blueprint, if I'm thinking through this, is really using the plan and putting the plan to work. And so is looking at the goals and understanding how do they hit diversity, equity, and inclusion, and justice from all aspects. So this to me is the blueprint. This to me is, if I were to ask, this is what we're working on. Everything that's in here that starred or that we said we could help with this, that we do so when the time comes, right? So again, we
Right.
can't move faster than the city. We can't move slower than the city. We have to find the right pace with what it is, prioritize what it is asked of, and then engage on that specifically. And then within that, there's a lot of consulting with the neighborhoods, consulting with the various organizations, consulting that we've gotten, because we've gotten input up to this point, but this is a living document. Are we continue to get input, or did someone change their mind because something happened along the way, right? That's the beauty of a living document, so. Okay, well, you have homework for Monday.
And I think on that note, it does have a section that they wanted us to make that our
Section 4.
goal, right? So I think that we have to be cautious about how much we're able to take on. So maybe having clarity on how they want that part, section 4, executed. What is the vision? I think that's a good starting point. Because if we come in with more goals and we don't even accomplish, what we have set forth or what was already set forth, I think that is contradicting of what we want to do.
Agree. I know we all are giving our time, and I know we want to use it effectively and efficiently. Yes, Counselor Starr.
I would encourage us to, in that homework assignment, to ponder, because again, right, the people that were appointed to this committee have, were appointed for very specific reasons. I would encourage us to maybe look at what was originally set forth in the goals for us and not be afraid to voice if we have any concerns about what was set forward, or if we think that there could be, we'd like to suggest maybe some modifications to those original goals based on maybe what our lived experiences or our professional experience. Because again, this committee was created by people that maybe were not part of didn't come from a lived experience with diversity. I'm making a general statement, and I apologize if I'm not saying it well, but I think there is room for improvement or modification to the original intent and what was set forward, because I think there can be a conversation about that, a back and forth dialogue about if it's working, great. If it's not working, why? And what do we think are some modifications as a committee of people that were appointed for very specific reasons?
So those are on the slides for Monday. So the one is, how does the council and the committee feel about the purpose? And then, is it still the right direction on the 6 original goals? So. Carrie?
Okay. One of the things that I was thinking about addressing for our committee, and also in working with the city council is which groups in our community are we not paying attention to, and are we not making extra effort to address their needs, because there are groups in this community that we know are out there, and they have concerns and for their groups and their families and individuals that we're just not reaching out to them. And I know that Shani talked about accessibility to in the parks, but I'm thinking that maybe, for example, the LGBT community, they have concerns, but their voice is not being heard, and they are a minority. And I think that groups like that are important for us to recognize and reach out to, because a lot of them will not come to us. We have to go to them, and I can probably think of other groups that are silent and whose needs need to be heard. And I think that we as a committee can reach out to them, and I'm not sure how we can do it as a committee. I know that I do it as an individual. I ask them and I reach out to them, but that's individually. I think that our committee needs to maybe figure out how to do it. And I'm not sure that going to these neighborhood groups is necessarily the sole manner in which we can accomplish this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. I think part of it, and it's hard because of this building and the power that this building has. But I think, one way, and I'm just brainstorming out loud, is when we have the observant months, maybe try to bring some of the folks from those groups to the meeting, to present, to talk, to, and it is scary. Like, this building isn't the most, I'll speak from myself. Sometimes it can be scary coming in, it's so formal, but that might be one of the things.
Yeah, and since we're kind of talking about that anyway, our committee presentations, I would encourage all of us in this group to attend each other's presentations. I think we can all learn from the presentations that are given on a monthly basis, and it will help for each of us to learn about what we're presenting and to give each other support. And it will show the council and the people who are here to see who we are. I know that as an individual, when I have made my presentations, I get feedback from people that I know who may not be here and who may be here, and they tell me how much they appreciated what they learned from me, because they never knew about some of the things that I presented. And so I know that the things that we present is very valuable, is who is listening. Yeah. And I know that when I presented, I invited some of my friends to come. So that is another way to engage more people from the community, is that if you are the one presenting, invite some of the people that you know and that you think will come and support our view. I think it's important for us to stay engaged as a committee, because nationwide, a lot of governments, local governments, are doing away with the goals that we have right now. And so since the council and this community has accepted us as a committee, I think we need to continue to press to make sure that this committee remains alive and working so that it doesn't disappear. Because that has happened in other localities.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Carrie, and I'm happy to look at it too over the weekend, but if you have references to like where that's happened, where those have been the diversity engagement like committees and other local governments have been disbanded or eliminated, could you maybe send that out to us beforehand so we have a chance to maybe do some of our own research about why that happened, or just so we're prepared if we get questions about that? I would love to be able to have some
Yeah.
ready information.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't keep track of the places and where that has happened, so I'll try and do some back research
That would be,
on that.
thank you. Because I agree, this is an important group.
So should we move on to 6, council report observance, recognition assignments? Any questions, comments, reservations? I told you about my faux pas from last month, so hopefully that is by sharing, you don't all do the same. Make sure
Well,
you.
I would like to know what the dates are of these
Oh, great,
presentations.
yeah.
That would be helpful for me.
It's Dawn, do you want to take that on?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
The
question.
dates of the presentation. So is it always either the first or the third? So it's the first Monday or the third Monday of the month, right? And we get to choose which one, or is it always on that first meeting of the month that we do the observance?
Usually the first, right?
Yeah, historically, the mayor, if she's planning anything, aims for the first of the month.
Okay,
So that'd be great timing. However, you can come and present at the first or the third.
okay.
Although if there is a holiday that month, we typically meet on the Tuesday of that holiday week.
Or if it's something gets canceled. Okay, so let's take a look at it now, since we've got a little bit of time. So March is on the 11th, and Stephanie, you're all set for that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Counselor Reed?
We were expecting her last time on Monday.
Oh, you had a meeting? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
Oh,
So
sorry.
that's not a bad thing. I mean, you can still come under a committee. The committee reports is where we usually do this.
Okay,
Yeah, just
thank you.
So it would be the third Monday now.
Yeah, the 18th.
So then I won't do it this Monday, I'll do it.
That's a work session.
So it would be Monday, the 18th, right, Tim?
Oh, the 18th? Okay.
I believe so.
Okay.
Is it too late to have Stephanie added to that agenda?
No, we can definitely add.
Awesome. And then April 1st? No fool? Okay, April 1st.
So the first?
Then we're looking at May 6th. June 3rd.
if I might.
Counselor Reed, yes?
So we have 3 things in May.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna try and put all 3 of them on one day, or are we gonna do?
Do we have a choice?
Yeah. Yeah, perhaps we ought to talk to the mayor about when she's doing which proclamations and kind of the whole point of this is too that this is not just a month. It is a ongoing kind of a thing. This is designated as a placeholder, but it's important to.
So you're going to check and see when,
Yeah, I can do that.
okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Should we do the same thing for June since there are 2? June 3rd, and then there's June 17th for Juneteenth?
Well, Juneteenth is a little bit different.
Okay.
So there's 2 dates in June.
It's June
3rd and
3rd.
the 19th.
No, it's June
Or
3rd.
what?
June 3rd and the 7th.
Yeah, the 19th is for Juneteenth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the office. Yeah, I think these guys are closed that day.
June 3rd?
The 19th?
The 19th, yeah,
We're
but that's
close
a
to 19th.
Wednesday.
But
We
it would
could-
be-
No,
that is
it
a
would be
date.
the 17th, right?
Yes.
It would be the
This is
17th.
Juneteenth, that's on June 19th.
Well, that's what I thought.
Okay. So let's do that on June 17th
No, so it'd be the 17th.
So be on the 17th?
for the second one for Jill. And then we don't have any in July, that's correct, right?
Or August.
Or August. September would be September 9th, because the second.
It would be Tuesday, September 3rd.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And can I ask a question?
Of
on that?
course.
A clarifying question. Since the week is September 17th through the 23rd, do you want to do it on the 16th?
I would prefer the 16th because I'm out of town
Okay,
the first week.
And and September 15th.
it's okay, because it works pretty good, it's within the beginning
So
of
I
the
do
month.
the 16th?
Yeah. For both, for Constitution Week and for
Yeah.
National Hispanic Heritage Month. Does that work for you, Benita? Okay. October is October 7th. And we should do both. And November is November 4th. And December 2nd. Is that correct? Okay, perfect. All right.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, coordinating with the mayor, that was the asterisk, to see if she would like to invite one of the organizations. I would just check anyways, again, because I didn't check with the Black History Month, and she already knew who the person was, so, and had already connected, which is a great thing, but just, if it wasn't the same organization, then it was like, ooh, we're gonna have to have one more proclamation, we're gonna have to have 2 copies of it, so. Okay. Spotlight on practical applications of diversity, engagement, and inclusion. We had the homework last meeting to bring examples of inclusive language, and because we were going to present this to the council, correct, for adoption, but we got the task of bring additional ones and for discussion. So we can open up for. And I will defer to Tammy and Stephanie to go first on the examples you brought and why do you like them and what stood out to you, so.
I used the Buffalo Cloud because we looked at them for consulting with us. I don't know how long ago, maybe a year now?
About a year.
Somewhere around there. But I really liked how they had everything laid out. I liked that the language fit what I felt like was good for this committee. And I'm pretty excited with the material that they were able to share.
Thank you.
And I just like what we have because it was a shorter, more concise one, and one that is easy to translate to actually using it without having to think too much about it. So that's why I brought ours here.
Thank you. Mine was pretty long, probably one of the biggest ones, and it was from OHSU. I love that they did it from a customer perspective, so they are providers of healthcare, and so they really have to think about how they engage with their patients to earn trust. It's a big thing on healthcare, and so that's why a lot of the terms are people first, and I think that was the similarity, Stephanie, between like the main part of this document and your document was everything is people first, so refer to items, to things as people first as opposed to things first, right? So, and I think, you know, what was also, I think, something that we might be able to suggest is that this isn't the language police. It isn't the language jail that we're going to send folks to. But it is one of those things about thinking through before you speak and what's the best term in the situation to include folks, to make sure that folks feel welcome, seen, heard. So I think oftentimes the perception can be, oh, I'm going to say something and I'm going to offend somebody. And I think if you understand certain terms are offensive, there are a variety of alternatives you can use and can choose to use so that you don't intentionally offend someone knowing that that term can be offensive. And I'll use one that we use at work because for me it was, and I still think about it when I say outside of work at times because it's that like, I'm going to divert a little bit, but when I took a defensive driving course for work, and the best advice they said was like, hey, we're teaching you defensive driving for work, but we truly would love you to do defensive driving all the time, so you don't go aggressive driving when you're not at work and then defensive driving when you're at work. You just internalize that habit, right? And so the word that we moved away from at work was stakeholder, which, if you think about it, we use it all the time, right? We use it all the time about stakeholder engagement and stakeholder this and stakeholder that. It can be offensive for certain communities, specifically indigenous communities, because of what it implies on claiming to land and owning land and usurping things. And so we change it to interested parties or partners. So it isn't like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to use this word. I think before I say, oftentimes, right now, it takes me an extra second to say it differently, but hopefully the impact that it has on the folks that it could potentially be perceived as offensive is worth that extra, let me think before I say. So I'm using it as an example because it isn't one that I think often folks either think or understand, and it's not, and again, I think it depends and it varies on where you are or who you're speaking or what you're using it, but for me it's becoming a little bit more of a second nature, even if it may not offend anyone in this room. It may be offensive at times, and so I'm just trying to remove away from using the word. So I think that would be my ideal goal for a language guide. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to say it and I'm going to get in trouble. Is think about it, and maybe these are some alternatives that you might say that might be better suited. Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, because the pushback that we get from a lot of this is, the holdover from the 90s politically correct.
Sure.
And this isn't about being politically correct. It's about thinking before you speak. It's about, understanding the implications of your words and, as you say, internalizing them. It's not just about, pushing the right hot buttons. It's about the treating people respectfully.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think that the pay is worth the reward, right? So it only takes us time to, a little bit of time to review language, different ways that we can express ourselves. But the reward is that we're not offensive and we come across more inclusive and more diverse. So it's a very small price to pay for that to happen, right? The other thing is, when I think about the language, it's not necessarily, again, like you said, we're not going to be the police of languages that we're chasing people around and saying, don't say that. But it really is more of be more open to knowledge, external knowledge from different diverse individuals, and really just taking that in and saying, how am I showing up in my everyday life, work, personal, and thinking about making those changes that, again, you're not losing an arm or a leg, every time you correct yourself. It doesn't take much. So the way that we see it, I think the approach is different. I know that we might sometimes think, well, I don't want to change the way I speak. Well, it's not necessarily it's not changing the way you speak, it's being more open and diverse on the way that you speak. And it's elaborating and creating more of a language that is more open to communities in general.
And I think it's a hard thing. Thank you, Anita. I think it's a hard thing because not everyone sees feedback as a gift, but feedback is a gift, right? If I can tell you and reflect on, can you do this better? It's that continuous improvement mindset. Like, I don't want to ever stop evolving and getting better. And so it's that, may I suggest a different way of saying, right? You ask for permission and then you offer that feedback, and not every time and not everyone is open to that. So it is a balance, I understand. So where do we go from, is this part of what we're going to talk about on Monday as well, or is this not, is this off the table as, if we were to suggest a language or inclusive guide that can be adopted citywide for, like, citywide communications, or, we recommend, I know we can't say anything, you shall do this, but can we recommend, is that still on the table or no?
My guess is we probably won't have enough time Monday
Okay.
night. While it looks like a real small agenda, I think there's
No,
going to be a lot of
it's going to be
conversation.
meaty, yeah.
So I would say this might be a back burner, although
Okay.
if there is time, we could bring that discussion up as part of the tasks. You know, is this in scope or is this out of scope for what the council is expecting?
Counselor Reed and then Counselor Starr, are you processing?
No, she was first.
She's processing.
I'm processing.
She's processing. I've,
My word. Go ahead.
Oh, no, if you're ready, go ahead.
I would encourage us to request a conversation about this subject. Like,
okay.
because to me, this isn't in scope or out of scope. It's not an in scope or out of scope thing. This is something that impacts people every single day, and it impacts the citizens of our community that we serve. So I would encourage us to request a conversation about that.
Okay.
And be persistent in bringing that request up regularly until we can have that conversation.
Thank you for that. Counselor Starr, Counselor Reed.
And just kind of building on that too, you know, we have these documents plus the other one that we had before, and incidentally, I did look at the district and there wasn't one, which I thought was interesting. Anyway, but sort of distilling these, because this is a lot to, but distill these as part of the conversation. Because it shouldn't just be our job to say, okay, these are the most important, but if we're going to, instigate a conversation, what is that going to look like? Is it going to be an agenda item on the city council? Is it going to be part of a committee report, although it's really too long for a committee report? Is it going to be part of another work session? Just kind of trying to figure out how to present this information and what we want to do with it.
Purpose. So the beautiful thing about the OHSU one that I know from reading is they actually got the folks from OHSU to agree on the terms that made the most sense to make the glossary. I do think that if we suggest something for the city, perhaps the first step is to work with city employees on what are your internal guidelines? Do you have some that are, we say this and we don't say this, or we use this language and we don't use that language? And it could be as simple as some tacit knowledge, right? Maybe it isn't institutionalized and it isn't written, but if we're speaking in a certain way, I'm sure it's making its way into communication pieces that are printed, right? Or we printed bills, printed agendas, printed, I don't know, memos about things. So maybe that, and I'm saying, if we get the go-ahead, we should probably do an audit of what is being used and what can we suggest improvements, right? We're not going to come in and say, please use all these words that OHSU are using when we're not a medical provider. So it has to be part of what the language that's used every day in the city, but how can we make that a little bit better?
And just kind of follow up on that, it's not our purview or even the council's purview to tell the staff what to do. However, if the staff is interested in getting this information, then they can make that request of us and be able to, so that's kind of a, I feel like we should, make the staff aware of some of these resources that we have. But again, we advise the council, we don't advise the staff, and yet the staff, as you say, the communications, that's all part of, our community engagement. But I feel like that we offer that, and then the staff says, hey, yeah, can we talk about this a little bit more, rather than, and we've already decided that this isn't going to be imperative on anybody, but just, again, kind of recognizing where those lines are.
Yeah, I think some of the things, though, we do have, to Councilor Starr's point, push it a little bit more, like the translation pieces. It's in the plan, right? So we can push it because now it's in the plan, it's in technically scope. And maybe this is something we look at as we review the plan. Are there words in the plan that we could use differently? And maybe start there and then start adopting some of those things, right? Glossary, let's use this word for this rather than this word, so. And I haven't seen anything egregious, so to be, I haven't been like, oh my God, I was offended by this word on the plan, but it's small things. I am not everyone, and I don't have everyone's lived experience and perspective, right? So it might not have offended me, doesn't mean that it hasn't potentially offended somebody else, and we could say it differently. So.
Okay, if I might just.
Of course, yeah.
Question. Asking Tim, as the assistant city manager here, is there a mechanism where would that be a department head meeting conversation? Would it be just, how would that be the most helpful for the staff?
Yeah, I think it would start off as a department head, executive leadership team conversation. And I think they're definitely open to it, so.
So maybe it's another item after we determine the goals for the following year, we add that as this is one as well. I mean, if it is within scope, but.
It's about the communication.
Yeah.
It's a subset of communication.
Yep.
I think it is definitely within our scope, and I actually would like us to work on this a little bit each month maybe to kind of tweak it as a group to maybe whittle it down on our own as well while we are working to make this more engageable with moving this process forward, because it is really important for every group that meets in this building.
Okay. So have a recommendation and then review what's being used, how it's being used, and how that could be modified.
Yeah. Do we have a document within the city of this kind of magnitude that we can look at to see if any of these are part of that process or something to compare it to?
Currently, we do not. So we would really be building something from the ground up. We do have things that we've been working on throughout the years. As documents come up, we've been making intentional efforts for gender neutrality, those kind of things as we revise
But you
forms.
don't have a language guide per se.
We do not, no.
I know we have for the state, and we don't have one for lottery, but we have one for the state that is to speak in plain English, and so I'm seeing some head nods, try to speak as as simple as you can in terms so that everybody understands and you're not intentionally leaving folks out. So that might be one of the things that we this is it, and then these are
So
some
that can be one
guidelines.
of the points of view that we look at it from one of those lenses, as well as other lenses, like, is this diverse enough? Is this equitable enough? How can we make it more inclusive to include everybody and not leave anybody out? Kind of adds that support mechanism for what Carrie was sharing as well. Are we leaving anybody out? How can we improve that process? In doing that, it's going to help us engage better within the community and all our communications from my point of view.
Agree. So another project, potentially. If we get the go ahead, if we don't get the don't do it. I don't even say that it's within scope, but it's the persistent word. I have one of my favorite sayings, and you can steal any time I heard it from somebody else. Gentle pressure relentlessly applied.
Oh, I like that.
Sorry, not sorry, Tim.
No, it's all right.
All right. Any new business or anything else that isn't in the agenda that we want to? Stephanie.
So I spoke with our social equity group for ODOT, and the program director is willing to come and do a presentation for us, if that is something we can do. Yes, okay. So I think she would be willing to come next month to our meeting. She said she had that date open, if that was okay with you guys. And then I also brought what ODOT uses for the equity lens. So I'll give it to Dawn so she can send it out to everybody. It's just, another thing to give you an idea how they're looking at things.
Could she speak to that when she presents? Awesome, that would be great, and just how it was, how you arrived at it, the process, because that would help. Yeah. Yeah, that would be super helpful. Thank you so much for doing that. And we can put her in the agenda towards the beginning, so she doesn't have to stay for the whole meeting. So we'll do it after approval of actually, after appearance of interested citizens. Would that be okay? Okay. Yeah, beautiful.
You can pass it down if you want.
Anything else? Yes.
Is that anywhere? I've got so much open here. I don't know where I'm at. Is that a recommendation anywhere about working to develop an equity lens for the city?
Wasn't that part of the consulting
Yeah.
wish list?
Right, but we don't have a consultant. So, I'm
Pressure-
stealing
gentle pressure-
gentle pressure
relentlessly
relentlessly applied. I'm wondering, do we bring the importance of that back up about having an equity lens? Just a question.
I vote yes. And can we maybe add the consultant to our task list for Monday?
We can ask. Yeah.
Or
It's gonna be a
maybe
meaty
that
meeting.
part of our future request?
I think we have a really long agenda for Monday, so let's
Table that?
table that for now.
All right, I'll stick it in the parking lot.
Maybe after budget season.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tim would appreciate that.
Well, I mean, I guess the timing, it would be good to know if we're looking at something before budget season is over, so that way we can plan appropriately. So, at least internally, we can.
Table it though, and I'd like to have,
Sure.
I'd like to look at some of the notes from the strategic planning process, and then maybe come back after Monday.
That's
I'd
fair.
like to see how Monday.
Sure. We have a couple more meetings before the budget process kicks off, so
I'd
we've
like
got
to
a lot
see
of time.
Okay. I think that's it. I'm gonna adjourn it at 6:50. Oh, yes,
I
Tim.
I have one thing to add.
please.
Currently, we're working internally on a social media policy process kind of a document. And I think it's going to be headed towards the city council in the near future for a preliminary look. Our recommendation is going to be to have the city council send it to this group. So that's going to be something that we'll probably be looking at our next meeting.
So what would you like this group to do with that?
So that we'll have the policy hopefully in a close to final draft that we can provide comments on. And specifically what those comments are, I'll have to come back and figure out, since we don't have the equity lens of how we want to look at this, what specific questions we would like some feedback on.
Okay. Well, we maybe can test out a draft equity lens from somebody else and see if we're asking the right questions. We're still asking questions, doesn't matter where they came from, right?
That's true.
Yeah, okay, cool. I think that's it. I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 6:59, 1 minute to spare. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.